Hello, my little ones, and we're going to read our very last story from the Sleepy Times Tales book tonight, and it is called Tired of Being a Little Girl. What, oh what, could make this little girl be so tired of being a little girl? Let's find out. Oh dear me, sighed little Annie one fine morning. I am tired of being a little girl. I wish I could be something else. Well, said a voice near her, what would you like to be? Annie looked about in surprise. She saw no one, but the voice repeated the words. What would you like to be? Just to see what would happen, Annie spoke up quite loud and said, I should like to be a rosebud. The words were hardly out of her mouth before she felt her skirts twisting close around her body in a very queer way. She had on a little red cotton frock, but when she touched it, she found it was no cotton any longer. It was made of rose leaves. She looked down at her feet. They felt very queer. They seemed to be turning green, and up and down her legs were funny little sharp things. The next moment Annie knew she was a rosebud. She was growing on a bush in the garden. The wind swayed her gently back and forth. It was charming. Although she was a rosebud, she knew everything that went on around her. Suddenly she saw a lovely fairy bending over her. "Ah," said the fairy, "this rose petal is filled with dew. First I will drink the dew, then I will eat the tender end of the bud for breakfast." "Don't, don't," cried Annie. "If you do, you will eat my head." The fairy began to laugh. "Please make me something else. Quick," cried Annie, "make me into a bird." Before Annie knew how it happened, she was hopping around among the daisies, a real live bird. "This is great fun," she cried, "but I begin to feel hungry." "Do you?" cried the voice beside her. "Then I'll feed you." To her horror, in front of her stood a frightful little elf, holding in his hand an ugly worm, which he wanted to force into her mouth. Annie tried to scream. She looked round, hoping to see a friendly face, but the only faces she saw were those that some dreadful green apples, which seemed to be jeering at her from under a tree. "I won't eat that worm," she screamed. "I'm not a real bird. I'm just—" Then the sky grew dark. The wind blew furiously. Annie put her hands to her head, frightened, yet glad to find that she had hands and head, and she was not a bird. "Why, it's raining hard," she said. "Where have I been? I must have fallen asleep under the apple tree." And then Annie ran into her house as fast as she could go, to tell her strange dream to her mother. "And oh, Mamma," she cried, "I've decided that I would rather be a little girl more than anything." You see the little elf there under the tree. The naughty little elf. So he taught the little girl a lesson. Always wishing she could be something else than what she was, when the best thing that she could be was the very thing that she was, a little girl. And that is the end, the very last story in our Sleepy Times Tales. We are officially done with the Sleepy Times Tales book, guys. So when I get another storybook, I will be back with you. But until then, sweet dreams, my little ones, and God bless you all.